SMODE's animation engine lets you animate elements without having to use timelines or animation keys. Simply put, you can create loops or variations in parameters over time that aren't tied to a linear timeline. To do this, you'll divide your animations into small sub-animations which will be grouped together in a main element that I will explain. In this example, I've got a PNG image of a gear, and I'd like to make it rotate on itself without using animation keys in a timeline. For this case, there is a very practical option. In the renderer of my image, I can select the rotation parameter, right-click on its value, and select Linear Loop. What does this achieve? I can already see that my layer is coming to life, rotating just as I wanted. And it created two elements, or more precisely, three elements. It created an animation bank, followed by this element that is very important to know, which is the animation queue. This animation queue is divided into two subcategories of parameters. The general section contains its player, where I can pause, play, or change the duration of my cue. I can also control the speed using this little multiplier to slow it down. The second category is function. The function defines the minimum and maximum values for the animated parameter. For example, here I have a minimum of 0 degrees with 0 turns, and a maximum of 0 degrees with 1 turn. It also defines its period in seconds, in this case 3 seconds. This means that if my speed is set to 1, in 3 seconds my rotation parameter makes 1 revolution. So this sets my rotation parameter to increment over 3 seconds using a specific method. This increment method is defined by the shape of my function. Here it's a linear shape, so I have a linear motion. But if I change the shape by setting it to exponential, the animation is completely different. It is possible to create animations of this type on almost any parameter. If I go back and select my gear, and select the X position, for example, then I can also right-click on it to create a linear loop. And if I look at how it's made, I can see that it also has the general parameters and the function that determines the increment to be applied. This time, it's a percentage parameter that defines my X position. All I have to do is change this function from linear ramp to sinusoidal to get a back and forth loop. This sinusoidal movement from left to right, going from minimum to maximum and back to minimum, can be done quickly by selecting the parameter and choosing this option, Create Back and Forth Loop. Back and forth loop should be interpreted as applying a preset function. Instead of having a linear function by default, it's a sinusoidal function. Additionally, instead of a default period of 3 seconds, it's extended to 5 seconds. Of course, all this can be customized in the settings. If you take a closer look at how it's made here, you'll see that my animation bank groups together all the animations that have been previously created. And if I deactivate this animation, it stops playing. This element, with the target icon, shows me the parameters on which this loop is applied. So here I see that this loop, which increments a percentage from 0% to 100%, is applied on the gear PNG's position X parameter. And in the field here, by right-clicking, I can select Go to X to see the option on which it is applied. In the same way, for gear rotation, I can right-click on the rotation parameter and click Go to Rotation to see where this animation is applied. So if I disconnect the targets by deactivating them, the animation no longer play. They are no longer transmitted from the function to the parameter.